The bridge of the Ranger was quiet except for the soft hum of computers and the occasional beep from the navigation console. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his chair, reading through supply reports on his tablet. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. They were 3 months into their deep space exploration mission, and so far, they had found nothing but empty planets and asteroid fields. Lieutenant Amy Chen worked at the communications station, monitoring the various frequencies for any signs of intelligent life. She had been doing this same task for weeks now with no results. The galaxy seemed empty and silent, but then something changed. Her screen lit up with a signal that made her sit up straight in her chair. "Captain, I have something," Amy said, her voice sharp with excitement. "It is a distress signal, but the frequency is completely unknown. Nothing in our Earth database matches it." Jake got up from his chair and walked over to her station. He looked at the strange patterns flowing across her screen. The signal was definitely artificial, but it was unlike anything humanity had ever seen before. "Can you translate it?" he asked. Amy typed commands into her computer, letting the artificial intelligence system work on the problem. "The computer is analyzing the patterns now. It might take a few minutes." She watched as alien symbols began appearing on her screen, slowly changing into English words. Her face went pale as she read the message. "Captain, this is bad. Really bad." Jake leaned closer to read the translation. The message was simple but desperate. A species calling themselves the Varani were under attack. Their colony on a planet designated Epsilon 7 was being destroyed by something called the Krell Dominion. The Varani had no weapons and no way to defend themselves. They were scientists and farmers, not soldiers. Thousands were already dead. They were begging anyone who could hear them to help. "How far away are they?" Jake asked quietly. Lieutenant Danny Rodriguez checked his navigation computer. 2 days at maximum speed, sir. "But Captain, we are an exploration ship. We only have 35 people on board. We are not equipped for combat." Jake looked around his bridge at the young faces of his crew. They had all signed up to explore the galaxy and make peaceful contact with alien life. None of them had expected to find a war. But there was something about the Varani message that touched something deep inside him. These aliens had sent their cry for help out into the empty darkness, hoping desperately that someone would hear them. Lieutenant Rodriguez, "Set our course for Epsilon 7. Maximum speed," Jake ordered. "Lieutenant Chen, send a message to Commander Lisa Hayes. Tell her to meet me in the armory." The crew looked at each other with worried expressions. The armory had been sealed since they left Earth 6 months ago. Nobody had expected to need weapons out here in deep space. Danny Rodriguez entered the coordinates into his computer. "Course laid in, Captain. We will arrive at Epsilon 7 in 47 hours. Jake nodded and headed for the elevator. As the doors closed, he thought about what he was doing. He was taking his small, lightly armed exploration ship toward a war zone. He was risking the lives of his entire crew, for aliens they had never met. But he also knew that if humanity ignored this cry for help, they would lose something important. They would lose their humanity. Commander Lisa Hayes was already waiting at the armory when Jake arrived. She was a former Marine who had spent 10 years in combat before joining the space program. She was tough, smart, and completely loyal. "I heard we picked up a distress call," she said. "Are we really doing this?" "Yes," Jake replied simply. He opened the armory door with his command codes. Inside were rows of weapons that Earth had sent along just in case. Pulse rifles, railguns, combat armor, explosives, and medical supplies. Everything a small military unit might need. Lisa picked up one of the pulse rifles and checked it carefully. "Captain, I know you want to help these aliens, but we need to be realistic. We have 1 small ship and 35 people. If the enemy has real warships, we might not be able to do anything except get ourselves killed." "I know the risks," Jake said, "but we have to try. If we do not help them, who will?" The Varani sent that message out blindly, hoping someone good would find it. Well, we found it. Now we have a choice. We can turn away and pretend we never heard it, or we can do what is right. Lisa was quiet for a moment, then she nodded. "All right, Captain. I will get the crew ready. We have 2 days to prepare. I suggest we use every minute of it." Over the next 47 hours, the Ranger transformed from an exploration vessel into something more dangerous. Lisa trained anyone who could hold a weapon in basic combat skills. The engineering team modified the ship's industrial tools into improvised weapons. Dr. Paul Martinez prepared the medical bay for casualties. Everyone knew they might be flying toward their deaths, but nobody complained. Jake spent most of his time on the bridge, studying everything they could learn about the Krell Dominion from intercepted communications. The Krell were a conquering species that viewed other races as resources to be exploited or eliminated. They were ruthless and efficient. They had destroyed dozens of peaceful civilizations across this sector of space. Amy managed to intercept more Varani broadcasts as they got closer. The messages were getting more desperate. The Krell were systematically destroying every settlement on Epsilon 7. The Varani population had dropped from 50,000 to less than 10,000. Time was running out. On the second day, as the Ranger approached Epsilon 7, Jake called his senior officers to the bridge. Through the view screen, they could see the planet ahead. It was beautiful, with blue oceans and green continents, but even from space they could see the fires burning on the surface. 3 Krell warships in orbit, Lieutenant Ben Carter reported from the tactical station. Each one is about twice our size. They are taking turns bombing the planet. Captain, their weapons are much more powerful than ours. Jake studied the enemy ships carefully. They were large and heavily armed, designed to intimidate and destroy, but they were also arrogant. They moved in predictable patterns, confident that nobody would challenge them. Lieutenant Chen, send a message to the Krell fleet, Jake ordered. Tell them this system is now under human protection. They have one chance to leave peacefully. Amy hesitated. Captain, they will probably just laugh at us. Probably, Jake agreed. But we have to give them the chance. Send the message. As Amy transmitted the warning, Jake looked at his crew. They were scared but determined. They were so young, most of them in their 20s and 30s. They deserved to live long lives, to see Earth again, to have families and futures. Instead, they were about to fight a battle they would probably lose. But they were also human. And humans had one quality that seemed rare in the galaxy. When they saw someone in trouble, they could not just walk away. They had to help, even if it cost them everything. The Krell response came quickly. A reptilian face appeared on the view screen, covered in oily scales. Its eyes were cold and cruel. When it spoke, the translator made its voice sound mocking and amused. Humans, we have heard rumors of your primitive species. You dare challenge the Dominion with one tiny ship? Your foolishness is impressive. Surrender now and perhaps we will make your deaths quick. The transmission ended. Immediately, the nearest Krell warship turned and began accelerating toward the Ranger. Battle stations, Jake ordered calmly. Let us show them what humans can do. Alarms rang throughout the Ranger as the crew rushed to their battle stations. Jake sat in his command chair, watching the Krell warship grow larger on the view screen. He felt his heart pounding in his chest, but his hands were steady. Years of training and experience had taught him to stay calm under pressure. Enemy ship is charging weapons, Lieutenant Ben Carter announced from the tactical station. They are targeting our engines. If they destroy our engines, we will be helpless. Jake nodded. It was a smart move. The Krell wanted to disable the Ranger, not destroy it. They probably wanted to board the ship and capture the crew for interrogation or worse. Lieutenant Rodriguez, how confident are you in your flying skills? He asked. Danny grinned nervously. Pretty confident, sir. But I have never flown in actual combat before. Good thing you are about to learn, Jake replied. When they fire, I want you to dodge. Do not think about it, just react. Trust your instincts. The Krell ship fired 3 bright green bolts of plasma energy. They screamed through space toward the Ranger at incredible speed. Most ships would have been hit, but Danny was human. He had reflexes honed by millions of years of evolution on a dangerous planet. His hands moved before his brain fully processed the threat. The Ranger spun and dove in a maneuver that would have torn apart most alien ships. The plasma bolts passed by so close that they lit up the bridge windows, but they missed. The crew let out a collective breath of relief. Their turn, Jake said calmly. Mr. Carter, fire the railguns. Target their bridge. The Ranger's railguns were simple weapons by human standards. They used magnetic coils to accelerate solid metal slugs to enormous speeds. There was no energy signature to detect, no heat bloom to track, just chunks of dense metal moving at a significant fraction of light speed. Ben Carter fired. 3 tungsten slugs shot out from the Ranger and crossed the distance to the Krell ship in less than a second. The Krell shields designed to deflect energy weapons did absolutely nothing against solid projectiles. The slugs punched through the alien ship's hull like bullets through paper. Explosions erupted across the Krell warship as the tungsten rounds tore through vital systems. Atmosphere vented into space from multiple holes. The ship began to drift, its engines failing. "Direct hit," Ben said, his voice filled with surprise. "Their shields did not even slow down our rounds. I do not think they were expecting kinetic weapons." Jake allowed himself a small smile. Most species in the galaxy probably use energy weapons exclusively. They forgot that sometimes the old ways work best. He watched as the damaged Krell ship struggled to maintain stability. "How are the other two ships reacting?" Amy checked her sensors. "They have stopped bombing the planet. Both ships are turning toward us." "Captain, they look angry." "Good. The longer they focus on us, the more time the Varani have to take shelter." Jake stood up and walked to the tactical display. Two Krell warships were now converging on their position. "Lisa, are you monitoring from engineering?" Commander Lisa Hayes' voice came through the intercom. "Yes, Captain. I saw what you did to that first ship. Not bad for an exploration vessel. But now we have two fresh enemies coming at us and our shields are only at 70% power." "Can you give me more power to the shields?" Jake asked. "I can give you more power to shields or engines or weapons, but not all three," Lisa replied. "The reactor was not designed for sustained combat. We are already pushing it harder than the engineers back on Earth would approve." Jake considered their options. They were outnumbered and outgunned. In a straight fight, the Krell would eventually wear them down and destroy them. But humans had never won their wars through straight fights. They won through creativity, adaptation, and sheer stubborn refusal to give up. "Give me engine power," Jake decided. "Speed and maneuverability are our advantages. We are smaller and faster than they are. Danny, I need you to fly like you are being chased by the devil himself. Use the planet, use debris, use anything you can to make their targeting difficult." "Understood, sir," Danny said. His hands moved over the controls, plotting a course that would take them through Epsilon 7's upper atmosphere. The two Krell warships opened fire simultaneously. Dozens of plasma bolts filled the space around the Ranger. Danny threw the ship into a series of wild maneuvers, spinning and diving and climbing in patterns that seemed random, but were actually carefully calculated. The Krell weapons fire passed all around them, but none of it connected. "They are trying to predict our movements," Ben observed. "Their targeting computers are having trouble keeping up with our evasive patterns." Jake understood why. The Krell had probably never fought an enemy that could move like this. Most species in the galaxy evolved on gentler worlds than Earth. They could not handle the extreme acceleration and direction changes that humans found tolerable. The G-forces that Danny was pulling right now would probably kill most alien species. Dr. Paul Martinez's voice came over the intercom from the medical bay. "Captain, I am seeing some crew members experiencing dizziness and nausea from these maneuvers. Nothing serious yet, but we cannot keep this up forever." "Understood, Doctor," Jake replied. He studied the tactical display, looking for an opening. The two Krell ships were trying to box them in, forcing the Ranger into a position where they could bring all their weapons to bear. "Amy, can you hack into that damaged Krell ship?" "The one we hit first?" Amy looked surprised by the question. "Maybe. Their systems are probably in chaos right now." "What do you need?" "Access to their engine controls," Jake said. "I have an idea, but I need to be able to remotely activate their engines." Amy's fingers flew across her keyboard. "Their security is actually pretty weak. They rely on physical security rather than digital encryption. I am in. I have access to their propulsion systems." "Good, stand by." Jake watched as the two healthy Krell warships maneuvered closer. They were being more cautious now, having seen what happened to their companion, but they were also getting into position for a coordinated attack. "Danny, bring us around toward the damaged ship. Make it look like we are going to finish it off." Danny changed course, heading straight for the drifting Krell vessel. The two pursuing warships accelerated, thinking they had the Ranger trapped. They began charging their weapons for a devastating combined strike. "Amy, on my mark, fire that ship's engines at full emergency power," Jake ordered. "Captain, that will tear the ship apart," Amy warned. "That is the idea." "Mark." Amy activated the damaged Krell ship's engines remotely. They fired at maximum power, far beyond safe limits. The already crippled vessel began accelerating directly toward one of the pursuing warships. The Krell commander tried to evade, but at that range and speed there was no time. The two ships collided in a massive explosion that lit up the space around Epsilon 7 like a small sun. Debris and energy scattered in all directions. "One down," Ben said quietly. "One to go." The remaining Krell warship immediately changed tactics. Instead of pursuing the Ranger, it began retreating. putting distance between itself and the human ship. The commander had learned that fighting up close against humans was dangerous. He is being smart, Lisa observed. He is going to try to use his superior firepower at range. Jake studied the enemy ship's movements. The Krell commander was good. He was using the planet's gravity to help his maneuvers while keeping the Ranger at a distance. We need to end this quickly. Our shields are down to 40% and we cannot keep dodging forever. Ben looked up from his console. Captain, I have been analyzing their weapons fire. Their plasma cannons have to recharge between shots. There is a 3-second gap after each volley. 3 seconds, Jake repeated thoughtfully. 3 seconds was not much time, but for a human who was thinking quickly, it might be enough. Danny, next time they fire, I want you to accelerate straight at them during the recharge period. Ben, be ready with every weapon we have. We are going to ram our way down their throat. Are you serious? Danny asked, then he saw Jake's expression. Of course you are serious. The Krell warship fired another volley of plasma. Danny dodged most of it, but 2 bolts clipped the Ranger's shields. Warning lights flashed across the bridge as shield strength dropped to 20%. Now, Danny, full power. The Ranger's engines roared to life, pushing the ship forward at maximum acceleration. The distance between them and the Krell warship closed rapidly. The enemy commander realized what was happening and tried to fire again, but his weapons were still recharging. Firing all weapons, Ben announced. The Ranger unleashed everything it had, railgun rounds, missiles, even the mining lasers that were never meant for combat. The concentrated barrage slammed into the Krell warship's forward shields, overwhelming them completely. Their shields are down, Amy called out. Hull breach detected. Keep firing, Jake ordered. The Ranger's weapons continued to hammer the Krell ship. Explosions rippled across its hull. Then something critical was hit, and the entire rear section of the warship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. Enemy ship is dead in space, Ben reported. Multiple hull breaches, engines offline, weapons offline. They are finished. Jake sat back in his chair, finally allowing himself to relax. They had done it. One small human exploration ship had defeated 3 Krell warships. It seemed impossible, but they had managed it through skill, creativity, and... The Ranger moved into a stable orbit around Epsilon 7, while the crew worked to repair the damage from the battle. The shields were slowly recharging, and the engineering team was patching hull breaches. Everyone was exhausted but alive. They had survived their first real combat, and the relief was overwhelming. Jake stood on the bridge looking down at the planet below. From space, Epsilon 7 was beautiful. It had blue oceans and green forests with white clouds drifting across the continents. But he could also see the dark scars where the Krell had bombed the surface. Whole cities were burning and smoke rose from dozens of impact sites. Captain, I am receiving a transmission from the surface, Amy said. It is the Varani. They want to talk to you, Jake nodded. Put them on screen. The view screen changed to show an alien face, and Jake had to remind himself not to stare. The Varani was tall and thin, with skin that seemed to shimmer with different colors. Its face was delicate, almost fragile-looking, with large eyes that held an expression of wonder and fear. When it spoke, the translator made its voice sound musical and soft. We are Sena, elder of the Varani colony, the alien said. You came. We sent our message into the darkness, not knowing if anyone would hear. But you came. You fought for us. You saved us. We do not understand why strangers would risk so much for people they have never met. Jake felt uncomfortable with the gratitude in the alien's voice. We heard your call for help. We could not ignore it. How many of your people survived? Sena's colors shifted to darker shades, which the computer indicated meant sadness. 8,000 remain of the 50,000 who lived here. The Krell killed so many before you arrived. We are a peaceful people. We have no weapons, no armies, no way to fight. When the Krell came, we could only hide and hope for mercy, but they showed no mercy. I am sorry we did not get here sooner, Jake said quietly. May we come down to your planet? We have medical supplies and doctors who can help your wounded. Sena's colors brightened slightly. Yes, please. We would be grateful for any help. But I must warn you, Captain. Many of my people are frightened. They have never seen violence before. What you did in space, the fighting and explosions, it was necessary, but also terrifying to us. Some of my people fear you almost as much as they feared the Krell. Jake understood. The Varani had evolved on a gentle world without predators. The concept of violence was foreign to them. To see ships destroying each other in space must have been deeply disturbing. We will be careful not to frighten your people further, he promised. 6 hours later, a shuttle from the Ranger landed on the surface of Epsilon 7 in what remained of the main Varani settlement. Jake led a small team that included Dr. Paul Martinez, Lisa Hayes, and Amy Chen. They wore simple uniforms without any visible weapons, trying to look as non-threatening as possible. The Varani city was beautiful but damaged. The buildings were made of some kind of organic material that grew in elegant curves and spirals. Gardens filled with alien flowers grew between the structures, but many of the buildings had been destroyed by Krell plasma fire, and the gardens were trampled and burned. Hundreds of Varani gathered to watch the humans emerge from the shuttle. Jake could see fear in their large eyes, but also curiosity. He walked forward slowly, keeping his hands visible and his movements calm. Sina came forward to greet them. Up close, Jake could see that the elder was even taller than he had thought, at least 7 feet in height. The Varani's skin shifted through shades of blue and purple as it approached. "Welcome to Epsilon 7, Captain Morrison," Sina said. "We are honored by your presence, though we do not know how to properly thank saviors." "Such a concept is new to us," Dr. Martinez stepped forward with his medical scanner. "Elder Sina, with your permission, I would like to examine your people and provide medical care to anyone who was injured in the attacks." Sina gestured to several buildings nearby. "Many wounded are sheltering there. We have tried to help them, but our medical knowledge is limited. We have never had to deal with injuries from violence before. Our medicines are designed for illnesses and accidents, not burns and trauma." For the next several hours, Dr. Martinez and his team worked tirelessly to help the wounded Varani. Jake watched as his crew moved among the aliens with gentle efficiency. Despite the language barriers and the strangeness of alien biology, the humans and Varani managed to communicate through gestures and simple words. Jake noticed that the Varani gradually became less afraid as they saw the humans helping rather than hurting. Children began to approach cautiously, their colors bright with curiosity. Amy spent time with some of the younger Varani, showing them pictures of Earth and trying to explain where humans came from. Lisa Hayes walked over to join Jake as he stood watching the scene. "This is strange, Captain," she said quietly. "Yesterday we were fighting a battle for our lives. Today we are playing doctor and making friends with aliens. This is what exploration is supposed to be about," Jake replied. "Meeting new people, learning from each other, helping when we can. The fighting was necessary, but this is the part that matters." A young Varani child approached them, its colors cycling rapidly through the spectrum. It held out something in its delicate hands, offering it to Jake. He took it carefully and saw that it was a small sculpture made from the same organic material as the buildings. It depicted a strange creature that Jake realized was supposed to be a human. "The child says thank you," a Varani translator explained. "She says humans are heroes from the stars who fight monsters. She made this for you." Jake knelt down to the child's level. "Thank you. This is beautiful. What is your name?" The child's colors turned shy pink. "I am called Lyra. Are you really from another world? A world of warriors and fighters?" Jake thought about how to answer. "I am from a world called Earth. It is a beautiful place, but also a dangerous place. My people learned to be strong because we had to be, but we also learned to be kind and to help others. Strength without kindness is just cruelty." Lyra seemed to think about this. "The Krell were strong but not kind. They hurt us for no reason. Are all strong people cruel like them?" "No," Jake said firmly. "Being strong means you have a choice. You can use your strength to hurt people, or you can use it to protect people. My crew and I chose to protect you. That is what strength should be for." The child's colors brightened to happy yellow, and she ran off to join other young Varani who were gathering around Amy. Jake stood up and found Sina watching him with an expression he could not read. "You speak wisely, Captain Morrison," the elder said. "But I must ask a difficult question. The Krell came to our world because we have minerals they want. They will send more ships when these ones do not return. Your small vessel defeated 3 warships through cleverness and bravery. But can you protect us when they send 10 ships? Or 20 or 100? Jake had been thinking about the same question. "No, we cannot protect you alone. But we can help you get in contact with other species in the galaxy. There must be others who oppose the Krell dominion. We can help you find allies and friends." Sina's color shifted to worried orange. But what if there are no others? What if the galaxy is full of species like the Krell who take what they want through violence? What if peaceful people like my kind have no place in such a universe? Then we will change that universe, Jake said with conviction. My people learned long ago that bullies only win if good people do nothing. You sent out a call for help and we answered. Now we will help you send that call farther and louder until someone else answers too. We will not let the Krell destroy you. Over the next few days, the crew of the Ranger worked alongside the Varani to begin rebuilding. The humans used their technology to help clear debris and repair damaged structures. In return, the Varani shared their knowledge of agriculture and biology. Jake was impressed by how advanced the Varani were in some areas, while being completely ignorant in others. Dr. Martinez spent hours talking with Varani scientists, learning about their world and their biology. "Captain, this is fascinating," he reported one evening. The Varani evolved on a world with no large predators. Their entire ecosystem is based on cooperation rather than competition. They literally cannot understand the concept of harming others for personal gain. It is not in their nature. That must be nice, Lisa observed. But it also makes them vulnerable. How did they survive long enough to develop intelligence without any defense mechanisms? Their world protected them, Paul explained. Epsilon 7 has a unique electromagnetic field that prevented most dangerous cosmic radiation from reaching the surface. The climate is stable and mild. Natural disasters are rare. They basically won the planetary lottery and evolved in paradise. But that means they have no experience with danger or violence. Jake thought about Earth with its hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanoes, and ice ages. Humans had evolved in a world that constantly tried to kill them, so they learned to be tough and adaptable. The Varani had evolved in a world that nurtured them, so they learned to be gentle and cooperative. Neither approach was wrong, but it meant the two species viewed the universe very differently. On the 5th day, Amy came running to find Jake. "Captain, we have a problem. I am picking up a signal from deep space. It is Krell, and they are calling for reinforcements. They are saying that a hostile alien..." Jake stood in the communications center of the Ranger, looking at the star map displayed on the large screen. Amy had identified dozens of inhabited star systems within a few weeks' travel. Some were members of something called the Galactic Council, a loose alliance of peaceful species. Others were independent worlds that minded their own business. And then there were the territories controlled by the Krell Dominion through fear and force. "What exactly are you planning, Captain?" Lisa asked. She stood with her arms crossed, watching Jake study the map with intensity. "The Krell have built their empire on the idea that might makes right," Jake explained. "They attack peaceful species because nobody stops them. But what if someone did stop them? What if the galaxy saw that the Krell can be beaten?" Dr. Martinez understood first. "You want to make an example of what happened here. You want to show other species that the Krell are not invincible." "Exactly," Jake confirmed. "Amy, I want you to send a message to every inhabited system within range. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that the Varani called for help and humanity answered. Tell them that 3 Krell warships were destroyed by 1 small exploration vessel. Show them the battle footage from our sensors." Amy looked uncertain. "Captain, that might make the Krell even angrier. They will see it as humiliation." "Good," Jake said. "Let them be angry. Anger makes people stupid. But more importantly, let the galaxy see what we did. Let them see that the Krell can lose. Fear is the Krell's greatest weapon. We need to take that weapon away from them." Lisa nodded slowly, understanding the strategy. "You want to start a movement. You want other species to realize they do not have to accept Krell domination." "The Varani sent a message asking for help, and we came," Jake said. "Now we need to send a message asking for allies. Not for us, but for every peaceful species that has suffered under the Krell. We need to make this bigger than just Epsilon 7. Over the next 2 days, Amy worked to craft and send messages across dozens of different communications frequencies. She included video footage of the battle, sensor logs showing the Krell attacks on civilian targets, and testimonies from Varani survivors. The message was simple but powerful. Humanity had entered the galactic stage, and humanity stood with the victims of aggression. The response was overwhelming and came faster than Jake had expected. The first reply came from a species called the Tauren, who lived 3 systems away. They had been paying tribute to the Krell for decades to avoid being attacked. Their message was cautious but interested. "We received your transmission," the Tauren ambassador said through the translator. What you describe seems impossible. The Krell have been the dominant military power in this region for generations. How did your small ship defeat 3 of their warships? Jake answered honestly. We come from a dangerous world. My people evolved to survive against difficult odds. We learned to fight, but we also learned when to fight. The Krell threatened innocent people, so we fought to protect them. It is that simple. More messages came from other species. Some were skeptical, thinking the humans were exaggerating or lying. Others were hopeful, desperate for any sign that the Krell could be resisted. And a few were afraid, worried that humanity might be just as aggressive as the Krell but hiding it better. Then a message came from the Galactic Council itself. An ambassador named Trix, from a species that looked like intelligent insects, appeared on the screen. Greetings, Captain Morrison of Earth. The Council has been monitoring your actions with great interest. We must speak with you about what has happened at Epsilon 7. Jake agreed to meet with the ambassador in person. 2 days later, a council ship arrived in orbit around Epsilon 7. It was a sleek vessel designed for diplomacy rather than war. Ambassador Trix came down to the planet's surface with a small delegation. The meeting took place in one of the rebuilt Varani structures. Jake brought Lisa and Dr. Martinez with him. Sina represented the Varani, standing tall but nervous beside the humans. Trix was fascinating to look at. The ambassador had 6 legs, multiple arms, and compound eyes that seemed to look in all directions at once. When Trix spoke, the translator gave the voice a clicking, mechanical quality. Captain Morrison, you have created quite a situation. Trix began. The Krell Dominion is outraged. They are calling you pirates and murderers. They say you attacked their ships without provocation. That is a lie, Jake said firmly. The Krell were committing genocide against the Varani. We have footage of their attacks on civilian targets. We responded to a distress call, nothing more. Trix's antennae twitched in what might have been amusement. I believe you, Captain. The Council believes you. The Krell have been a problem for a long time, but they are powerful and most species fear them too much to act. Your victory has changed the calculation. How so? Lisa asked. Because you have proven they can be beaten, Trix explained. For generations, the Krell have relied on fear and overwhelming force. But you defeated them with inferior numbers and a ship not even designed for combat. If humans can do this, then perhaps others can too. You have given hope to species across the sector. Jake leaned forward. Ambassador, a Krell fleet is coming here. At least 20 ships, maybe more. We cannot fight them all. The Varani will be destroyed unless we get help. Trix was quiet for a long moment, antennae waving slowly. The Council cannot officially authorize military action against the Krell. We are a peaceful organization dedicated to diplomacy and trade, not war. However, many Council member species have their own defense forces. If those forces happened to be in this area when the Krell arrived, well, that would be coincidence. Lisa smiled. Plausible deniability. I like it. Indeed, Trix agreed. But I must be honest with you, Captain. Even with help from Council members, this will be difficult. The Krell are bringing enough force to level this planet completely. They want to make an example of Epsilon 7 to discourage others from resisting them. This will be a real battle, not the skirmish you won before. We understand the risks, Jake said. But we will not abandon the Varani. Humans do not leave friends to die. Sina spoke for the first time, her colors shifting to grateful blue. Captain Morrison, you barely know my people. We have nothing to offer you in return for this sacrifice. Why do you continue to risk everything for us? Jake thought about how to explain it in a way the peaceful Varani could understand. Elder Sina, my world is very different from yours. Earth is dangerous and violent. But that danger taught my people an important lesson. We learned that survival depends on cooperation. We learned that protecting others protects ourselves. When we see someone in trouble, we help them. Not because we expect something in return, but because it is the right thing to do, and because someday, we might be the ones who need help. Dr. Martinez added, The Varani remind us of something important, Elder. They remind us that not every species needs to be warriors. The galaxy should have room for peaceful people like you. If we let the Krell destroy that, then we lose something valuable. We lose diversity and kindness and beauty. Trix's antennae quivered with what the translator indicated was approval. Well spoken, Doctor. The Council shares this philosophy. We will send word to our member species. Those who can help will come. But Captain Morrison, you should know that Earth has made an impression on the galactic community. Some species admire your courage. Others fear your capacity for violence. You come from what we classify as a Class 12 death world, the highest danger rating. Most spacefaring species evolved on Class 3 or Class 4 worlds. You are stronger, more aggressive, and more adaptable than almost anyone else out here. That sounds like it could be a problem, Lisa observed. It could be, Trix admitted. Or it could be an opportunity. The galaxy needs protectors, not conquerors. If humanity can be the former rather than the latter, you will find many friends among the stars. Over the next week, ships began arriving at Epsilon 7. The first came from the Tauran system, 3 small patrol vessels with limited weapons but brave crews. Then came ships from a species called the Novan, aquatic beings who traveled in water-filled vessels. More species followed, each contributing what they could. Jake was amazed by the diversity of alien life that answered the call. Some species communicated through light patterns, others through chemical signals that had to be translated by computers. There were beings made of crystalline structures, others that seemed to be living clouds of gas contained in force fields. The galaxy was far more strange and wonderful than humanity had ever imagined. But Jake also noticed something troubling. Most of the alien vessels were small and lightly armed. These were patrol ships and merchant vessels hastily converted for combat. They had courage but little experience in actual warfare. "We have 37 ships now," Ben Carter reported during a strategy meeting, "but only about a dozen have any real combat capability. The rest are basically just targets." "Then we do not let them be targets," Jake said. He studied the tactical display showing the various ships arranged around Epsilon 7. "We use the armed vessels as a fighting force, and the others as support. Evacuate Varani civilians to the unarmed ships if the battle goes badly. Use them for medical support and supply runs. Keep them away from direct combat." A Tauran captain named Zek spoke up through the communication system. "Captain Morrison." The Krell fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel like a swarm of angry hornets. 23 warships appeared on the sensors, each one bristling with weapons and covered in heavy armor. They moved into formation with military precision, spreading out to surround Epsilon 7 from multiple angles. Jake watched from the bridge of the Ranger as the enemy fleet positioned itself. His hands gripped the armrests of his command chair tightly, but his voice remained calm. "All ships hold position. Do not engage until I give the order. Let them make the first move." The Krell fleet commander's face appeared on the view screen. This one was larger than the previous commander, with darker scales and scars across its face that suggested many battles. Its eyes gleamed with cruel intelligence. "I am War Leader Croth of the Krell Dominion," the alien announced. "You are the humans who destroyed 3 of our ships. Your arrogance will be punished. Surrender immediately and perhaps I will allow some of you to live as slaves." Jake kept his expression neutral. "War Leader Croth, you are in violation of interstellar law by attacking peaceful settlements. The Galactic Council has been informed of your actions. Leave this system now and no further violence is necessary." Croth laughed, a harsh sound that the translator rendered as grinding metal. "The Council? Those cowards do nothing but talk, and I see you have gathered a fleet of weaklings to hide behind. Merchant ships and patrol vessels. You think these can stand against Krell warriors?" "We will see," Jake replied calmly. "You have one last chance to leave peacefully." "We do not leave," Croth snarled. "We conquer. We will destroy your pathetic fleet, then we will burn Epsilon 7 until nothing remains but ash, and we will send the recordings to every system in the sector so they know what happens to those who defy the Dominion." The transmission cut off. Immediately, the Krell fleet began moving into attack formation. "They are splitting into 3 groups," Ben reported from Tactical. 8 ships moving to attack our main defensive position, 10 ships heading toward the planet to resume bombardment, and 5 ships staying back as reserves. Lisa studied the enemy movements. "They are not taking us seriously. They think this will be easy," Jake nodded. "Good, Amy, signal all ships. Execute Plan Delta. Ben, wait for my mark before firing. Danny, be ready to move fast." The Krell attack group accelerated toward the defensive fleet positioned above Epsilon 7. Their plasma cannons began charging, preparing to unleash devastating firepower. But as they closed to optimal firing range, something unexpected happened. The asteroid field that orbited Epsilon 7 suddenly came to life. Hidden among the rocks were mines that the combined fleet had spent the last week placing and camouflaging. Dozens of explosions erupted throughout the Krell formation as ships triggered the concealed weapons. Direct hits on 3 Krell ships, Ben called out. Shields down to 60% on the lead vessels. The mines worked better than expected, but the Krell were professional warriors. They immediately adapted, spreading out to avoid further mine strikes and continuing their advance. War Leader Kroth's voice came over the communications channel, furious but controlled. Clever trick, humans, but tricks will not save you. All ships open fire. The Krell unleashed a massive barrage of plasma weapons. Green bolts of superheated energy filled space like a deadly light show. Several ships in the defensive fleet were hit, their shields flaring and weakening under the assault. Now, Ben, Jake ordered. All ships return fire. The defensive fleet opened up with everything they had. The mix of weapons was chaotic but effective. Human railguns sent solid projectiles screaming through space. Tauran energy weapons pulsed with blue light. Novan ships fired some kind of sonic weapon that disrupted Krell shields. And the other species contributed their own unique armaments. The Krell had expected a coordinated but weak response from inferior technology. What they got instead was a confusing mix of weapons that their shields and defenses were not designed to handle all at once. Several Krell ships took damage as projectiles punched through energy shields that were calibrated for energy weapons, while energy weapons slipped through gaps in armor designed to stop solid matter. They are confused, Lisa observed with satisfaction. They have never fought such a diverse mix of tactics before. But the Krell had numbers and firepower on their side. Despite the initial success, the defensive fleet was slowly being pushed back. 2 Tauran ships were destroyed when their shields failed under concentrated fire. A Novan vessel lost its engines and began drifting helplessly. Captain, the group heading for the planet is getting close, Amy warned. If they start bombarding the surface again, the Varani shelters will not hold. Jake had anticipated this. Signal Group Beta. Execute interception. From behind Epsilon 7's largest moon, another group of ships emerged. These were the fastest vessels in the combined fleet, led by 3 Ranger-class ships that had arrived from Earth during the past week. They accelerated toward the Krell bombardment group at maximum speed. The Krell were caught off guard by the sudden appearance of fresh enemies. They tried to turn and engage, but the human-led group was already among them. Fighting at close range where the Krell's superior numbers meant less. Captain Nina Garcia commanded the second Earth ship, the Pioneer. Her voice came over the tactical channel, calm despite the chaos. We have their attention, focusing on their weapon systems. If we can disable their plasma cannons, they cannot bomb the planet. The close-range battle was fierce and brutal. Ships collided and exploded. Weapons fire created a deadly web of energy and metal, but the human captains coordinated their movements with precision, using tactics developed through centuries of naval warfare on Earth. They treated space combat like submarine warfare, using the moon's gravity and shadow to mask their movements. Back at the main battle, Jake saw an opening. Danny, take us into the center of the Krell formation. Ben, target their command ship. I want War Leader Kroth to see us coming. That is insane, Danny said, but he was already inputting the course. We will be surrounded. Exactly, Jake replied. They will focus all their fire on us, which means less fire on everyone else. The Ranger dove into the heart of the Krell fleet like a falcon attacking a flock of crows. Plasma bolts filled the space around them as every Krell ship tried to destroy the audacious human vessel. Danny's hands flew across the controls, spinning and weaving through the incoming fire with reflexes that seemed superhuman to most species. Shields at 40%, Ben reported. 30%, 20%. Captain, we cannot take much more of this. Just a little closer, Jake said through gritted teeth. The Ranger shook as glancing hits from plasma bolts struck the weakening shields. Warning alarms blared across the bridge. Ben, fire everything at the command ship. One concentrated burst. The Ranger unleashed every weapon it had directly at War Leader Kroth's flagship. Railgun rounds, missiles, mining lasers, and even the emergency thrusters were turned into improvised weapons. The combined barrage slammed into the Krell command ship's forward shields, overwhelming them through sheer volume of fire. Their shields are down, Ben shouted. Hull breach detected on the command ship, but the victory came at a cost. Without shields, the Ranger was vulnerable. A Krell plasma bolt struck the engineering section, causing massive damage. The ship lurched violently, throwing crew members from their seats. Engineering is offline. Lisa's voice came through the intercom, strained with pain. Engines at 20%. We are drifting. Jake made a quick decision. All crew, abandon ship. Get to the escape pods. That is an order. What about you? Amy asked, refusing to leave her station. I will be right behind you. Go. As the crew evacuated, Jake sent one final message to the rest of the fleet. This is Captain Morrison. The Krell command ship is damaged. Press the attack now while they are disorganized. The combined fleet responded immediately. Seeing the Rangers' sacrifice had given them courage. Ships that had been retreating turned around and engaged the enemy with renewed determination. The Krell, suddenly without clear leadership and facing enemies who refused to break, began to falter. War Leader Kroth's voice came over the communications channel one last time, filled with rage and disbelief. How? How can inferior species fight like this? You should have broken. You should have run. Why do you not fear us? Jake, alone on the bridge of his dying ship, answered calmly, because we are fighting for something more important than ourselves. We are fighting for friends, for justice, for the right of peaceful people to live without fear. You Krell only understand power and domination. You have forgotten that true strength comes from protecting others, not oppressing them. A massive explosion lit up space as the Krell command ship's reactor went critical. The shockwave damaged several nearby Krell vessels. Without their war leader and facing an enemy that refused to give up, the Krell fleet began to retreat. They are running, Ben reported from an escape pod. Captain, the Krell are actually running. We won. Jake allowed himself to smile as he headed for the last escape pod. We did better than win, Ben. We proved something important today. As the Krell fleet fled into faster-than-light travel, the remaining ships of the combined fleet regrouped. They had lost 6 ships completely and many more were damaged, including the Ranger, which was slowly breaking apart. But they had... 3 months had passed since the battle above Epsilon 7, and the planet was slowly healing. The Varani had rebuilt most of their settlements with help from dozens of species who came to offer assistance. The destroyed buildings had been replaced with new structures, and the gardens were blooming again with alien flowers that filled the air with strange but beautiful scents. Jake stood in the main plaza of the Varani capital, watching as workers put the finishing touches on a memorial. It was a tall structure made from a mixture of earthstone and Varani organic material, representing the unity between species. Carved into the memorial were the names of all those who died defending Epsilon 7, both alien and human. Elder Sina approached slowly, her colors shifting to peaceful blue. The old Varani had aged visibly over the past months, the stress of the war taking its toll. But there was also a new strength in her posture, a confidence that had not been there before. Captain Morrison, I wanted to thank you again before you returned to Earth, Sina said softly. You and your crew gave us something we thought we had lost forever. You gave us hope, Jake smiled sadly. We just did what anyone should do when someone asks for help. I only wish we could have arrived sooner and saved more of your people. You arrived at exactly the right time, Sina replied. If you had not come, none of us would have survived. And more than that, you showed us something important. You showed us that being peaceful does not mean being helpless. We are learning from the other species how to defend ourselves while still maintaining our values. Jake had noticed the changes in the Varani. They were training with defensive technologies provided by the Council. They were learning strategy and tactics not to become warriors like the Krell, but to ensure they would never be victims again. It was a difficult balance, learning to protect without becoming violent by nature. Dr. Paul Martinez joined them, carrying a data tablet filled with notes. Over the past months, he had been working closely with Varani scientists to understand their unique biology and culture. Captain, you should see what the Varani have developed. They took our shield technology and combined it with their biological engineering. They created a planetary defense system that is completely non-lethal, but incredibly effective. Any ship trying to attack the planet will have its systems shut down without harming the crew. That is very Varani, Jake observed with approval. They found a way to defend themselves without compromising their nature. I am impressed. Commander Lisa Hayes walked up to join the group. She had spent the past month helping train Varani security forces in defensive tactics. Her arm was still in a medical brace from injuries sustained when the Ranger was damaged, but she refused to rest. Captain, the Pioneer is ready for departure whenever you give the word. Captain Garcia says she is looking forward to getting back to Earth and making her report. Jake nodded. The Pioneer would carry him and the surviving crew of the Ranger back to Earth. The Ranger itself had been too damaged to repair and had been carefully dismantled. Some of its parts were being used to help build new ships for the defensive fleet, while others would be preserved in a museum on Epsilon 7. What will happen when we get back to Earth? Amy Chen asked, joining the group. She had been working with alien communications experts, developing better translation systems. Will they understand what we did here? Will they support joining the Galactic Council? I think they will, Jake said. We proved that humanity can work with other species. We proved that our strength can be used for good rather than conquest, and we opened up a whole new future for Earth. We are not alone in the universe anymore. Lisa looked thoughtful, but we also showed the galaxy how dangerous humans can be. We destroyed Krell warships that other species feared. We fought battles that most species thought were impossible to win. Some aliens are going to be afraid of us. Let them be afraid of our strength, Dr. Martinez said, as long as they also know we use that strength to protect the innocent. Fear without understanding breeds hatred, but fear combined with respect can breed peace. Ambassador Trix approached the group, antennae waving in greeting. The insectoid diplomat had become a regular presence on Epsilon 7, coordinating council efforts to help rebuild and integrate the Varani into the galactic community. Captain Morrison, I have news from the council. The proposal for Earth's membership has been approved unanimously. Humanity will be welcomed as a full member species with all rights and responsibilities that entails. What about the Krell? Jake asked. Are they going to try to attack again? The Krell Dominion is in turmoil, Trix explained. War leader Kroth's defeat has caused political instability. Other Krell leaders are challenging the current regime. More importantly, 3 species that were under Krell control have declared independence. Inspired by what happened here, the Dominion is collapsing from within. Lisa whistled softly. We started a revolution without even trying. You started a revolution by trying to do the right thing, Trix corrected. That is the most powerful kind. When people see others standing up to bullies, it gives them courage to stand up as well. The effect of your actions will ripple across the galaxy for years to come. Sina gestured toward the memorial. Captain, we would like you to speak at the dedication ceremony. The families of those who died deserve to hear from the one who led the defense. Jake felt uncomfortable with the honor, but he understood the importance. I would be honored, Elder Sina. The ceremony was held that evening as the sun set over Epsilon 7, painting the sky in colors that Earth had never seen. Thousands of Varani gathered, along with representatives from dozens of other species. The plaza was filled with beings of every shape and form, united by their shared experience of standing together against tyranny. Jake stood before the memorial, looking at all the names carved into its surface. Human names, Varani names, Tauran, Novan, and species he had never heard of before. Each name represented someone who had chosen to fight for strangers, to risk everything for what was right. I am not good with speeches, Jake began, his voice amplified by alien technology so everyone could hear. I am a ship captain, not a politician or a poet, but I know how to recognize courage when I see it, and I saw more courage here than anywhere else in my life. He gestured to the memorial. These names represent something important. They represent people from across the galaxy who heard a cry for help and answered. They came from different worlds, spoke different languages, had different beliefs, but they all understood one simple truth. We are stronger together than we are apart. The crowd listened silently, colors shifting and lights dimming as different species showed respect in their own ways. The Varani taught me something important, Jake continued. They taught me that strength is not just about fighting. Real strength is about protecting others while staying true to your values. The Varani never wanted to be warriors, and they should not have to be. But they learned that sometimes you have to stand up for yourself and others. That is the balance we all need to find. He paused, looking at the faces in the crowd. When my ship picked up the Varani distress call, I made a choice. I could have ignored it and continued my mission. Nobody would have blamed me. But I could not do that because I am human, and humans have a saying. We say that all it takes for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. We chose to do something. Sina stepped forward and placed her delicate hand on the memorial. Because of Captain Morrison and all those who answered our call, my people still exist. 8,000 Varani survived because strangers from distant worlds decided that our lives mattered. We will never forget this gift, and we pledge to honor those who died by living lives worthy of their sacrifice. The ceremony continued with speeches from other species and moments of silence for the fallen. As darkness fell, Bioluminescent plants that the Varani had cultivated began to glow, illuminating the memorial with soft light. Later that night, Jake found himself walking through the gardens with Lisa. The night air was warm and filled with sounds of alien insects and small creatures. It was peaceful in a way that Earth rarely was. "Are you ready to go home?" Lisa asked. Jake thought about the question. Yes and no. Part of me wants to see Earth again, to report what we found out here. But another part of me feels like the adventure is just beginning. We changed something important here, Lisa. We proved that different species can work together. We proved that doing the right thing matters. You sound like you want to come back out here, Lisa observed. I do, Jake admitted. Earth needs explorers and diplomats now more than ever. We need people who understand both the dangers and opportunities of the galaxy. People who can build bridges between species, Lisa smiled. Then I guess we better make sure our report convinces Earth to stay engaged out here. Because you are right, Captain. This is just the beginning. 6 weeks later, the Pioneer arrived in orbit around Earth. The crew was greeted as heroes, their story having been transmitted ahead by faster-than-light communications. Earth's media was filled with images of the battle, interviews with alien species, and debates about what humanity's role in the galaxy should be. Jake spent days in meetings with Earth's government leaders, explaining what had happened and advocating for Earth's full participation in the Galactic Council. Some leaders,